everyone. My name is David LeBlanc, host of the Self-Sufficient You community. We are an online community here based in Canada for like-minded people who are coming together to learn, share, connect, and prosper on journeys of increased choice, independence, and personal fulfillment. A large part of being resilient and self-sufficient is having good health and wellness, particularly preventing illness and disease. And this tends to go with the air we breathe, particularly our indoor air, which is a huge factor in all of this. Now, today I'm really happy to be chatting with Mario DeFranco, president of Purihome, based in St. Catharines. Hello, Mario. How are you doing today?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. Thank you, David.
It's always a pleasure. So, Mario, there's been a lot of discussion and news about air today, particularly with what's been going on lately with some of the tragedies in the US and just generally, the topic of our air quality in general. What are some of the major risk factors, and why is having air, good air, healthy air, important for us?
Yeah, thank you, David. This has become a huge concern. And what I'll share with you during our time together today are a lot of the facts, literally the price we pay if we don't take care of the air for our family, and it's very critical. In fact, a lot of people will come into Purihome and they're interested in like maybe earthing or water, and they're very important. And based on budget and answering their questions, we realized that for them, perhaps the most critical thing is the air quality. We need to address that before anything else. So that happens often. And so, it's my goal that by the time we're done today, the question you just asked me is going to be answered in very great detail. So the first question that I'll propose or ask to you and our audience is, what kind of air are you breathing? And this really depends on our surroundings. And there's two major problems with that. The environmental pollutants every year increase. So right now, the research shows 9 out of 10 people worldwide are breathing air that's considered to have very high levels of pollution. And certainly here in Southern Ontario, we fall under that immensely. We rank worse than Canada for so many different things. Cancer is one of them. The second problem with the fact that our air that we breathe depends on our surroundings is when we're in nature outside, the earth and sun naturally create plasma, which is just beautiful. Plasma is it's charged gas molecules. So when you have the interaction of sun, land, water, air, you create these beautiful hydrogen gas molecules, oxygen gas molecules that come from water. And nothing does that inside our home, absolutely nothing. And we've got man-made materials in our home. So this has become a major problem with indoor air quality. It's devoid of natural plasma. It's high in particles. And because of that, it's extremely toxic. So that's what we're going to talk about, the facts and how do we reduce the toxins going into our bloodstream? Because that's another part of, I think, what you're going to see today. So I do want to start with some facts. And in Toxic Nation, David, it was a report by the Environmental Defense, which is a research organization with lawyers and environmental scientists. And their research was so profound that the report was actually called Toxic Nation because it showed no matter where you lived in Canada, it didn't matter your age, your job, like your habits, it did not matter, that every single person in this study, from Newfoundland to BC to the Yukon, every person in the study had significant levels of toxins in their body. Toxins that cause cancer, toxins that cause respiratory problems, that disrupt hormones. That's the third category. The fourth category is neurological development. And this starts to beg the question, what's going on? In 1 year alone in Canada, Industry Canada shows that over 4.5 billion kilograms of respiratory toxins are emitted into our environment. That's just Canada. That has nothing to do with the United States, where a major contributor to the pollution here in Niagara, for sure, Southern Ontario, are the coal burning power plants in the Ohio Valley, because the westerly winds bring them in. And so when we look at that, and that every single Canadian had a significant amount of toxins in their body, on average, 41 carcinogens, now we realize, Dave, the question isn't, am I toxic? The question is, how toxic am I? And this is where we really want to help. This is part of what we want to do with Purahome. So we'll talk about two of the categories, the cancer causing agents and hormone disruption, just very briefly. And it's all related to air quality.
And this becomes really important, Ariel, because as you know, 70% of Canadians live about an hour from the US border. So
absolutely.
So if the US, and you think of the Rust Belt and the industry that is in New York and Ohio and all the the industrial states, we're just right next door to that, 70% of Canadians. So, I think that just magnifies, in addition to the pollution that we're creating here in Canada, in addition to where we're located, 70% of us right next door to all that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the facts that I'm about to share with you will just verify it, literally what you're saying. There's 20 years of data from the American Lung Association. Heart disease is the #1 killer of people in North America. And heart disease mortality over that 20-year period, ending in 2000, has decreased by 37%. At the same time, mortality from lung disease has gone up 20%. So what's going on here? And right after that study, Stats Canada did a 10-year study that ended in 2010, and it was the same thing. Mortality from heart disease went down 10%. Mortality from lung disease went up 14%. And we're talking about cancer. So we have a cancer crisis in Canada. More people die now from cancer than from heart disease. That wasn't the case 20 years ago. And I'm not talking about smoke. Smoking has decreased by about 70% in people. And tobacco smoke has over 7,000 chemicals. There's over 70 known carcinogens in it. Cancer rates should have declined, but they have not. They've skyrocketed.
You're not talking about someone's personal behavior anymore, right? With smoking or working in a coal mine. You're talking about something that's out of our control, which is just the general air that we're forced to breathe outdoors, right? It's quite a shift.
Oh, absolutely. And that, there's a sentence we use all the time to our prospects here. We're at the mercy of our environment, and that is not a good feeling. I have a 5-year-old daughter, Sophia, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect her so that she can grow up normally and as healthy as possible. You don't want to be at the mercy of your environment. So having said that, Dave, I'm going to turn this on. And it's kind of funny, like we shut all the air cleaners off at Purahome last night to get ready for today. Hopefully you can see this. This is a laser particle counter. It's a beautiful tool. We use it to test products, to scrutinize them, and to test people's homes and work environments. The number you see here, which is around 525,000, that represents the number of particles in 1 cubic foot of air. So think of a soccer ball. That represents 1 cubic foot of air. Okay? Normally, we are way, way cleaner than this. We opened our doors a little bit in here. And what I'm going to do right now is, to my left, you can see one of our portable air cleaners. I'm just going to turn it on. Okay?
I'm going to assume you guys have probably one of the cleanest air environments around.
I know. So it's really cool. And we can test it all the time. And after 20 years, I still am fascinated by how clean we can get the air. But it's really neat when people come into our showroom and they unclog and they tell us their chest has opened up and they can breathe through both nostrils. So now we have our air cleaner running. I don't have it on top speed, and it's the only air cleaner running in our whole establishment here. But what we'll do, I'm curious, we'll test the air in about 15 minutes, okay? And then that'll be a good test. People don't have to believe what I say. This tells the truth. So
I love that because whenever I see products that claim to do something for me, because I like facts, I like to see like a measured difference. So I think I really appreciate the fact that you're testing the air before and after using a scientific tool. I think that's going to speak volumes.
I appreciate it. No, thank you. It's been critical for us because it's allowed us to determine what product is legit and what product is not, and now we can really help our customers. So we were talking about cancer. So, and this is sad. So nearly 1 in 2, right? So if there's 100 people out there and we pull them in, we know about 50 of them are going to have cancer at some point in their lives. And again, that's totally wrong. So, okay, great. You dive into this. Smoking's gone down, heart disease has gone down. So what's going on? And the research came out in 2013 from the IARC. That's a group of oncologists, research people. They looked at over 1,000 studies, over 1 million people, 5 continents, and it's what we expected. Particles, which is what this detects, we now know are cancer causing. And it's simple, it's so simple. So by decreasing the amount of our exposure to particles, we're reducing our risk of cancer. 15 years ago, people would come in, I want less dust, I want the air to be fresh in my home. And yes, those are great, but not too many people come in now saying that. People know that things have changed. And as we go through this, David, I think you're going to see how important air quality is. It literally is one of the 2 or 3 most important things we can do to help protect our families.
Yeah, because normally when we talk about, thinking about maybe buying an air cleaner or an air purifier, is because, I got too much dust in the house, or I have a pet, there's a lot of pet hair, and, this is like a radically new mind shift where we're starting to ask ourselves, I want to start reducing, eliminating the cancer causing particles in my home.
Oh, absolutely. This is how we have to think now. Yeah, again, I shake my head at what we've seen happen over the last 5 years. And, people that were healthy in their in their 60s now have asthma, have allergies. And you'll see as we go through this how the smallest particles impact our blood cells, and that's the level at which they interfere. So we talked about there's 4 types of toxins. The respiratory problems, the cancer, hormone disruption is a big issue as well when it comes to air quality because of our addiction to fossil fuels. And benzene is the core molecule in all of that. It mimics estrogen, and that's a big reason why, and I believe we talked about this in our first video together, but in a little more detail, it's airborne. And this helps explain why the average age of puberty is dropping in females, because you're inhaling air that has benzene in it. Your body thinks it's a hormone. So humankind is under siege because of all of this. We've got to reduce our exposure to these chemicals that are attached to particles such as benzene, because it is a hormone disruptor, which is one of those 4 key categories that Industry Canada pollutes our environment with. So we want to reduce our exposure to particles, to reduce our exposure to cancer-causing agents, respiratory toxins, neurological toxins, and hormone disruptors. We need to do that. I'll share with you then some facts. And I apologize, I do need to drink every so often. McMaster was part of this study, Clinical Evaluative Sciences. 4 out of 10 people in Ontario, again, are going to have asthma. So almost half the people we meet are asthmatics, and that's not a sign of a healthy nation, a healthy country, Dave. That's disheartening, that's wrong. And perhaps the most important study that really, it hit me in the head like a hammer, was 2001, the Journal of the American Heart Association. So at this point, Pure Home was a couple of years old. We've been in business for over 20 years. So going back about 20 years, we had quite a bit of expertise in water, and that's how we started. But this article in 2001 showed that within 2 hours of exposure to particles, our risk of heart attack and stroke goes up 50%.
50%. Wow.
And that was, whoa, if we're going to be able to help people, in my case, Pure, if we're going to help people with health, water is a part of the puzzle. Air is just as important, if not more important, as you'll see why I think shortly. We desperately need to reduce people's exposure to particles, not just because of cancer, hormone disruption, heart attack and stroke is huge. So part of that McMaster study showed too as well that even children before they're born, there are significant impacts on their health from stunted growth just when they're in their mom's womb from air pollution. So this is something critical. Half of all illness state comes from indoor air pollution. That's been well documented. That's from the Environmental Protection Agency. Hospitalizations, we have all this data. Like on days of elevated particles, we know that this is when people tend to die from cancer. It puts them over the edge. But not just the elderly, little children, increase in hospitalizations by 35% on days of elevated particle matter. We need to reduce our exposure to this major pollutant. And one that, hit me hard too, because I see a lot of mental illness out in the world, with distant relatives and just people coming in here. People who live in homes exposed to air pollution have a 40% greater risk of developing Alzheimer's and vascular dementia than those that have clean air. So yes, we want to see less dust and fresher air, but you're reducing risk of heart attack and stroke, you reduce the risk of cancer and neurological when we really take care of the air we breathe. And maybe I'll just, one more fact, from the Environmental Protection Agency, over half of all buildings suffer from some form of indoor air quality problem, and it's called sick building syndrome. So those are some of the important facts. And now what we'll do, Dave, is we'll just talk about indoor air quality and what's really important. So we can take any toxin in the air you breathe, and it can fall in one of three categories: particles, gases or odors, and bioburden. So we'll quickly talk about that. I'm going to start with particles because what I have learned over 20 years in doing this is particulate matter 95% of the time is what's causing the problems in people's health or in their homes. There's no safe level. This, I still remember reading this on Environment Canada's website, and that was just affirmation from something we already knew. I was happy to see it there, but they said right on Environment Canada's website, there is zero safe exposure to particulate matter. We could talk about lead, heavy metals, and water, and we can say you can have up to 10 parts per billion of lead in your water, even though I disagree with that, and they're saying that that's okay. But when it comes to particles in your air, zero safe level of exposure to particles in the air we breathe. So now this is very important what I'm about to share. Particles come in different sizes. So when we travel, we talk about kilometers, right? If I got to drive to Toronto, I measure it in kilometers. The air we breathe, the particles are measured in microns. A micron is 1/1000th of a millimeter. Dave, anything smaller than 2.5 makes it into here, our respiratory tract. So we call that PM 2.5, particulate matter 2.5. Anything smaller is lung damaging, and it makes it into your blood. And if it's in your blood, and what does your blood do? It circulates. It ideally brings nutrients into your cells and toxins out. But when you have airborne particles in it, it's bringing toxins into your cells. And this is one of the most important studies too, that air particles are totally linked to cell damage. This study was done in California, USC, UCLA, a joint study. And what it showed was that the smaller the particle, the deeper it penetrated into your body. The smallest part of you that's alive, Dave, is the cell. So molecules are not alive, ions are not alive, but in God's creation, when you put it together and you have a cell, the cell is alive. It's got a nucleus, it's got mitochondria, it's got ribosomes. And what this study showed was that as the amount of particulate in the air increased, the more the mitochondria in your body became deformed and dysfunctional. And if you remember that grade 9 slide of the human cell, the mitochondria is responsible for giving your cell energy. Now, when you got billions and billions of cells, if they're not making energy, how are you going to feel? And then it occurred to me, this is probably why the vast majority of our customers, when we do the air cleaning for them, they say they feel better, they have more energy.
Yeah.
It's because their mitochondria are working. So this goes down to the cellular level. Particles are critical. Another thing that's important in particles, if I could show you a graph right now, it would show you that the majority of the particles in your air, you know how maybe Jessica says, Dave, look at the dust bunnies. That dust is literally less than half of 1% of what's in the air you breathe. It's literally just a little tip of the iceberg. The Titanic didn't sink because of what was above the water. It sank because of what was below. Same thing with our health. This particle counter, and you won't be able to see it, but there's a number right here. Maybe you will. It says 0.3 micrometers.
Okay? I can't see it, but I believe you.
Okay, thank you. That measures down to 0.3 thousandths of a millimeter. 97, 98% of what's in our air is smaller than 0.3 microns. That means you and I cannot see it. That's what's causing our health problems. So if people are spending $40 on a 3M furnace filter, you're wasting your money. It's restricting airflow.
Yeah.
We've seen how by pulling it out, people's air quality improved. That cannot address the toxins in your air that are making it into your bloodstream. Okay, so you're wasting your money, people, if you're buying a filter that's 99% efficient at something that's 5 microns in size, because that's literally less than 1% of what's in your air. We need to take out the ultrafine particles we cannot see. And that's where HEPA purification comes in, if it's properly designed. So we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. A couple more points about particles. Dave, I'll ask you a question. Dust is always the first particle we talk about. And do you know what's the main source of dust?
Skin, dead skin cells.
You're awesome. I just made a pile of dust here. Dead skin, and it's not even just that. Thank you, great answer. It's what the dead skin does. It becomes food for dust mites. Second thing we talk about, dust mites themselves are harmless. It's what they do. They eat, sleep, reproduce, and their feces essentially are responsible for half of all asthma attacks. Okay, so if you have 2 pillows in your home and they're both 1 year old, the average pillow will weigh 20% more from dust mite feces. Okay, just to give you an example. Second leading
I'm gonna have a hard time sleeping tonight. By the way.
This is a concern for us because we have people who wake up like this, and we ask them, and we have plasma technology to help with that. Allergens are obviously a particle, right? And a lot of people, no matter what we do, you can try closing your windows, but as soon as you go outside, they come in on your clothes. Pet dander is also dust, if you will, but it's dust from a pet. And cat dander is worse than dogs because they lick themselves, and there's enzymes that people will react to. The ones that are really starting to really put a bit of fear in me are the outside pollutants. Every year, the amount of pollution is just increasing. And now what we're talking about, Dave, is man-made particles. So not just smoke, manufacturing byproducts. There's no process that's 100% clean out there. This is industrial exhaust, industrial pollution. And recall, like at the beginning of the presentation, 4.3 billion kilograms annually are put into our environment of respiratory toxins. That's just from Canada alone. These toxins contain heavy metals, pesticides, volatile organics, other foreign substances. We desperately and greatly want to reduce our exposure to these, they're called xenobiotics, man-made pollutants. We really want to. So that's a short synopsis on particles, which is one of the three categories of pollutants in our home, and probably the most important group. I'll very quickly talk about gases and odors. This is more of an issue, David, if somebody has a newer home that's more airtight because these pollutants are trapped in the home. Now we can talk about something like formaldehyde, which off gases from man-made glues. And whenever we go into a newer home and look at the floor joists, they're not solid wood anymore. It's particle board. And you see the chips of wood all held together by glue.
Yeah.
And I've been in some newer homes where on the whole drive back to Pure Home, I can taste those compounds on my tongue.
And of course, with the newer homes, they're often marketed and sold as a healthier option because the home is tighter, it's better insulated, and sometimes they come with HRVs, heat recovery ventilators, with introduce fresh air and get rid of the stale. But what's your take on kind of that? Is it just marketing, or is it actually something where the home is a bit healthier compared to maybe something 40 years ago?
Thank you. No, I wouldn't say that it's healthier. You have to have an HRV now in your home. It's become code. As of I think 4 or 5 years ago, you have to have air exchange with the outside environment. My home's about 50 years old, so it's not as airtight. I pay a bit more to heat it, but I'm not exposed as much to formaldehyde and benzene from off gassing, right? So the newer homes have to rely on mechanical ventilation, like you said, the air exchanger, to get these toxins out. So yes, gases and odors are far more of an issue. We rarely talk about it if we go into old homes or into apartments that are not anything but airtight. We go into banks where people are walking in and out. They're not airtight, just cars are idling. We got a particle problem. But I'll quickly share this with you. And this has happened a couple of times where people will call and say, you know what, there's a funny smell coming from my portable air cleaner. I just changed the filters a month ago. And this has happened a couple of times. And then we ask, well, did you renovate? No. Any new furniture? Yes. Is the air cleaner in your bedroom? Yes. And literally in one day, this has happened twice. There was so much off gassing from new furniture that our carbon filter in the air cleaner, David, became so saturated that it started off gassing a new smell. There was a chemical reaction. And so you had to throw the carbon filter out. It got saturated in one day, just to show you how toxic new products are. One of my favorite studies was done by Underwriters Laboratory with Good Morning America, and they did air testing, and they put new baby furniture in a room. 1 week later, there were 300 chemicals in the room and only 2 outside the room.
Wow.
Yeah, you're not doing your baby any favor when you see that. This one's an eye-opener, which we need to start asking ourselves the question. It's not, am I toxic, or sorry, it's not, again, am I toxic? It's how toxic am I? This was done in New Jersey by the Environmental Protection Agency, and hundreds of people were tested for breath analysis. 9 out of 10 people had benzene in their breath. Again, benzene is a byproduct of the petroleum industry. It mimics estrogen. And this one surprised me. 9 out of 10 people had perchloroethylene, PERC, which is, are you familiar with PERC?
Perchloride? Yeah, unfortunately.
It's from dry cleaning. So 9 out of 10 people had that in their breath. Trichloroethylene, which is just an industrial solvent, 30% of people. So again, it's not, are you toxic? The question is, how toxic are you?
Yeah.
Final category is bioburden. So we've talked about particles, we've talked about gases. Bioburden, David, refers to things that were alive or are alive. So bacteria, fungus, mold, viruses. Bacteria know how to survive. They float in the air until you or I inhale them, and then they can reproduce and we get sick. Viruses don't float in the air. Oh, wait a minute. We were told that SARS and coronaviruses are transferred through the air. The viruses don't float in the air. Well, that's because they attach to particles. Another really amazing reason to get rid of particles in your air, because once you lower them, what's happened to your route of exposure to viruses? It's plummeted.
Yeah,
Not to mention your
transportation method away, right? By doing that. Yeah.
And molds affect us in three ways: inflammation responses, allergic responses, toxic responses as well. So we really, a lot of homes you go into, as soon as you start walking down the basement stairs, you smell the mustiness. We get that a lot. So we'll do our best to minimize that. So if we kind of summarize all of this, we can say that the average home in North America is 2 to 5 times, or 200% to 500% more polluted than outside air.
Mm.
And it's become a high priority health risk today. And in my air presentation, this is what I'm going to mention. It's my actual favorite slide. I'll just ask you, Dave, in one day, how much food do you think you eat in terms of pounds?
Oh boy. I don't know. 4 pounds? That's just a wild guess. 3
Okay,
pounds?
well,
I'm not a
thank
huge
you.
eater, so I may not be representative of the average male.
Probably a couple pounds of food a day. My daughter probably eats that. She's growing rapidly. And then I'll ask you, how much water do you think you drink in one day?
I'm going to say 24 fluid ounces. It's still not nearly enough, but I think that's probably what I average.
Okay, so 24 ounces. I have here about 750 mils. 1 liter is about 30 ounces, right? That's a kilogram. That's 2 pounds. This was another one of those moments, like that study, within 2 hours of exposure to particles, risk of heart attack was up 50%. I got this data from the American Lung Association, and just you do a couple calculations. So that, in one day, we'll eat 1 to 2 pounds, 3 pounds of food. We'll drink, if we're good, 1 pound of water. We will breathe 30 to 35 pounds of air in one day. And if your listeners are focused on health, what we've just learned is what is the greatest entry of pollution into our body? It's the air we breathe. And like I said earlier, a lot of people will come in here for EMF, earthing, water, and based on how they answer questions, they need to start by improving their air quality. So we try to eat good food. We wash our fruits and vegetables. People spend extra money on organic, which is great. Most people are starting to drink filtered water. What are you doing for the air you breathe? It's the greatest entry of pollution into your body. So we're getting closer to the end here, and I've shared all these facts with you. So, okay, great. Let's use science. How do we solve a lot of these problems? And I'll talk specifically just about 2 technologies briefly. HEPA filtration is wonderful if it's done right. And unfortunately, like you kind of commented at the beginning, there are so many, I can't believe what I see online on these big websites that I won't even mention their names. I refuse to shop on them. You're seeing all these air cleaners that are just poor, they're awful. This tells the truth. And when we go test them, you look at the box, it'll say HEPA-like, HEPA-like, filters up to. As soon as you see that, that's a red flag. Keep your hand on your pocketbook. Do not spend money on anything like that. HEPA is an acronym, high efficiency particulate arrestants. It means, by definition, minimum 99.97% capture of all particles 0.3 microns and larger. Okay, Dave, the vast majority, and not like half, the vast majority of HEPA air cleaners do not meet that claim. Okay.
Is it because they're not true HEPA, or they're HEPA-like or HEPA light or something like that?
It's a combination of things. So manufacturers want the air cleaner to move air so they can claim a higher air delivery rate,
right,
which is easy to do. You can make a filter more porous, but now its filtration efficiency drops.
Yeah, it's a trade-off.
And then they don't seal the filter, so air goes around it. So now you're buying a fan.
Yeah.
That 40, 50. Yeah, and there's some big brand names there that are just awful that we've tested. They don't test well. So you want really high quality HEPA filtration. And we scrutinize. I've got a German air cleaner in my basement because it's awful. We thought it was going to be a good unit. It tested poorly, so it's just circulating air, so my garlic doesn't, grow a mold on it. So this is a good time to turn this back on, because we talked about HEPA, and HEPA filters down to 0.3 thousandths of a millimeter. So when we started our presentation, do you remember where we were at particle-wise?
I think it was, I remember 5.6, 5.4-ish range.
Yeah, 560,000 particles. Okay. So you can see right now, every 6 seconds. So now we're down to 185,000.
Oh, wow. It's a big
okay,
difference.
So yeah, and I've only got this on speed 4. And what I'll do, Dave, is I'll just do this. I'm going to test the air coming out of the air cleaner. And I'll let it cycle a few times. Then you see the 0.
Wow. Look at that.
Pure air, right?
Possible to get a 0. I didn't think that was even possible.
The majority of purifiers on the market don't do that. And now this is where a relationship with, someone you can trust comes in. And we've done our research. In the case of Veris, we scrutinized, and the first thing I saw about their products was they spent 2 years just working on the filtration. The majority of companies put a third-party HEPA filter in, Dave. These guys spent 2 years at MIT. They were able to increase the airflow and still improve the efficiency, which I have not seen anybody else do that in the world. So now I can say minimum 99.95% capture of everything certified. And if a virus is like a golf ball, a bacteria is a jumbo jet. So even viruses are getting captured at that minimum rate, like at even levels smaller than what my particle counter picks up. So that's what's important about HEPAs. The capture rate has to be legit. Okay, great. I want clean air in my home. Beautiful. If you have an 1,800 square foot home and you get a small air cleaner that does 500 square feet in 30 minutes, we're not able to do all the air in the home. So it's about flow rate and efficiency. And what's important too is, like, one of the first studies on this unit that I read was they basically just bombarded it with smoke to the equivalent of 10,000 cigarettes, and the airflow did not plummet. It plummeted right at the end, which mimics about a year of use. And I've seen a lot of air cleaners in smoke environments, and the airflow, just because of the nicotine and tar, just drops. So HEPA is good. The problem is finding a good HEPA, because the majority are awful, especially in the box stores. And something that we have to talk about, because it's amazing and I love it, and thank you for having me, is plasma. We've been dealing with plasma technology for many years, and it's natural. It's that interaction of sun, land, wind, and soil. So, Dave, if you had an issue respiratory-wise, and we were not allowed to use herbal remedies or medicine or air cleaners, I would say, Dave, we got to get you to a seaside beach or to the mountains, because particles are low and plasma sky high. And Einstein knew this. His sister had tuberculosis. He made her move to the Swiss Alps, and she started to recover. He actually helped develop the first plasma unit. And I forgot his partner's name. His partner went and patented it. Einstein didn't get involved in the patent. But plasma is beautiful. It's the creation of hydrogen and oxygen gas molecules. This is so much better than just a simple UV light that's hard to get a good result from. And the plasma in nature proactively reduces pollution. So plasma will reduce gases and odors. But in your home, the air cleaner can distribute plasma so that, if I sneeze the influenza virus in your living room, really good chance the plasma is going to engulf it and cleave it so that you're not exposed to it. It's absolutely brilliant. We've got research back in 2004 that plasma will destroy a coronavirus. The plasma we sell is made in Israel. We have the Eris unit available with plasma. It was exclusive for us. We worked direct with Switzerland on this. We had plasma shipped from the world leader in Israel to Switzerland. And now we have the ability to seek out and destroy allergens, spike proteins, molds, and also help reduce gases and odors in the home, and they get broken down into their constituents. And whenever we do installs, and maybe this is where I'll stop, like, we test for particles in plasma. It's amazing how even in 20 minutes, just from our installer cleaning up, typically the air in the home is 200 to 300% cleaner, just kind of like what we saw here today. And that portable there wasn't just doing my room because it's wide open. It's doing our entire building. So what's important is that the good science is used to reduce the risk of our exposure to all these toxins, because we breathe 30 to 35 pounds of air in one day, Dave. And if people want to detoxify, it's not enough to go to a health and wellness store and you go buy a detox. Right in the book, Detoxify or Die, Dr. Sherry Rogers says you can't do that. You've got to reduce your exposure to toxins first in your water and air, and then your detox membranes are going to work better, right? And we just talked about that study, USC, UCLA. We've got to reduce our exposure to ultrafine particles if we're going to have a chance for health, right? We don't want to be that half of Canada that gets cancer or asthma. So
I remember you told me before in a previous conversation, you made the comment, you know, you can eat consume as many vitamins and mineral supplements as you want, but if the air around us and the air we're breathing is toxic, that's not going to do anything. You got to start with our external environment before we can even consider about addressing the internal, right? And that's where the air comes in.
oh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's absolutely critical. So many people come in and a good example is they got something on their skin. And yeah, we've helped to get that off the body, but it's on your surface. It's what goes in your body that we have to address, right?
Yeah. And you're really looking at the root cause by doing that, not just treating the symptoms, but looking at the root cause. And in this case, today, talking about air. So when someone's looking for a good quality air purifier, so it has to be, I guess, 100% certified HEPA filter, first of all, and someone should be looking for a unit that also produces plasma, right?
Sure, especially if they're asthmatics or they have allergies, or if they have a home that is had leaks in it and there's a musty smell. Or if you have little ones and you notice they're edgy a lot, then definitely recommend the plasma. Really, in the end, what we're trying to do is help your blood circulate. Okay, and there's some studies that I didn't mention, but picture drinking water through a straw. And now picture drinking water, sorry, a milkshake through a straw. And you can see how, you got to really suck and it's hard. As the amount of particles in the air increases, your blood thickens. And this has been tested. Now we're looking at blood markers for blood vessel performance and inflammation markers in the blood. And in this study, they were greatly reduced, I believe, by over 400%, which leads to the conclusion, by taking particles out of our air, we greatly reduce risk of heart attack and stroke. Our whole goal at Pure Home, whether it's water, earthing, air, is to really get your blood to circulate. Nutrients into cells, toxins out. Clean air reduces those inflammation responses so that your blood really will circulate better. And I think of my dear mom who passed away, and she almost made it to 91 last year. And her doctor said repeatedly, Mario, I don't know what keeps your mom going, but we had purified air, we had super clean water, EMF protection, earthing. I know my mom had heart disease for at least 30 to 40 years, but we were able to buffer that because she had super clean air. My dad, European, he always made fires. And I'd say, Dad, just back off a bit, but he loved to make fires. And you should have seen how dirty the air cleaners were in their home. I couldn't do a whole home install for them because of the way the furnace was set up. So we had 4 portables running throughout. And it was a pleasure to change those filters because those ultrafine particles were not going into their bloodstream.
Yeah.
And it protected my mom's heart huge. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. Added years to her life. Can you remind us again of what unit you have behind us, the model and the brand, or the brand as well?
Yes, absolutely. This is one of my literally favorite products in over 20 years. When we first started testing it, it's like, whoa. And when our technician, Matt, goes to installs, and if he brings a portable with him or they already have it, when he does the air test, he comes in, he's shaking his head. He can't believe how clean the air is because of how good it circulates. Aeris is spelled Aeris. They're a Swiss manufacturer. About 3.5 years ago, David, we needed a premier partner. And I don't mind saying we were the oldest IQware dealer in Canada, and we were selling them for 17, 18 years. And we saw that although their filtration is exceptional, they didn't circulate air well, and they weren't doing anything to progress as a company. We wanted something better. So as soon as I saw that they spent 2 years at MIT with proprietary filtration, that opened my eyes. So here's a purifier that's 30% more powerful than the IQware Health Pro Plus, and its filtration costs are 52% less. And I thought, okay, this is a game changer, and our sales skyrocketed when we brought it in because we were getting better results. And I think there's several testimonials of people who had both. The Aeris 3-in-1 Pro on top speed will cover 1,500 square feet in 30 minutes. So all the air in a 1,500 square foot area with 8-foot ceilings will go through here twice an hour and come out at 0 particles. 3-in-1 means there's 3 filters in sandwich into one big 11-pound case. Dave, do you want me to open it up and quickly show you?
Sure, let's see it.
Okay. So the lid just comes off. And at this point, I usually just hand it to people, and they always say the same thing. Oh, they always say, oh, because this is heavy. This is 11 pounds. This is the HEPA, certified HEPA, 99.95% capture of even viruses. This is not HEPA. You can see I've been using my unit. It's not white.
Yeah.
It's
time for cleaning pretty soon.
Yes. We've got about 45 to 40% filter life left in this. That's what the monitor tells us. And in between the HEPA here and the pre-filter here is gas and odor absorption. There's several pounds of adsorbents, not just plain Jane carbon. So formaldehyde and benzene that typically go right through carbon. This will help remove at a really nice rate for a half decent amount of time. So
generally, how long would those filters last? I mean, obviously, it's going to depend on the environment and how clean or dirty it is. But if someone were to buy one, generally speaking, how long could they expect the filter or the filters to last before they have to either replace them or clean them out?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So this has surpassed our expectations. Initially, we told everybody you can probably expect 12 months, but what we're seeing is 12 to 17 months on average. If people smoke and have pets, absolutely, I don't want those particles going into my cells. So I'd rather them go into a filter, and I'm worth more than a filter. This is a $279 filter, but it's 3 filters in one. And for the certification, the European quality, it's a phenomenal value.
And how much could someone expect to pay for that particular model, the Aeris model? That's the Aeris 300, right?
Sorry, so this is the Aeris 3-in-1.
3-in-1.
Yeah, they're normally $1,349. There's a pretty darn good sale going on. We've been blessed because they, through consolidation of some warehouses in the States, they asked us if we wanted products so they didn't have to relocate it. So we got a discount on many skids of air cleaners. And so they're right now $9.99, which is less than our smallest HEPAs that we install that aren't even this powerful. So rather than paying an installer some money, people are better off getting one of these, like for, in many cases, for work or for home.
Right, because you just put it where you want it, you plug it in, you turn it on, right? It's pretty easy. Well, there's no installation as maybe opposed to something else, right? And it's portable too. So if you wanted to take it to the cottage or to where else, right? You put in the car and it's mobile like that. So that's useful.
Exactly. And again, we have smaller air cleaners that'll start in the 400 range. Everything is on our website. So we have something for every need. This is our most powerful portable. And even the people that were in here yesterday, just to give you an example, they bought a small portable air purifier from us about 9 years ago, and it's in their bedroom. They just moved into an apartment, and they know right away the neighbors are smoking. They know there's off gassing. Even though they've painted and ventilated, there's something not right. And this is common with many apartments, because typically apartments, there's a positive pressure in the hallway and you feel the breeze going through the door. That's because if the tenants are cooking, we don't want that odor to go out the other way. So now you got this air quality in a stagnant hallway with old carpets going in. And potentially you got smoke even from outside coming in from your neighbor's balcony. Small portable in their bedroom, and they bought the 3-in-1 because they're not messing around. And it was, I think, an 800 square foot apartment. So on speed 4, this is super quiet. It does 1,000 square feet in 30 minutes, right? And for $300 more, we have the plasma option too, which is really cool. That's the plasma from Israel. So now we have like a whole spectrum air purifier that pretty much addresses all those contaminants we talked about in our talk today.
So for someone who's on a budget and wondering about, because there's lots of options out there in the marketplace to buy in terms of indoor air quality, from various filters and purifiers and cleaners and ionizers and all these things. I'm thinking something like the model behind you and probably some of your other products, because you only deal with credible manufacturers. This could be a fairly, it is $1,000, but it's not gonna, it doesn't seem to be disposable. It's not gonna break down, and you're not gonna be throwing it out a year from now, like some other models. It seems to be like it could be a pretty practical one purchase solution to get some pretty immediate health benefits, whether you're living in a home which is around 1,500 square feet, or like you said, in an apartment, or particularly if you're moving into a new build with all the off-gassing, or if you have a newborn child who is vulnerable, instead of buying multiple healthy home kind of devices, this could be a one purchase solution, which would give you not just immediate benefits, but also maximum health benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, it comes down to the fact that this will capture the most ultrafine particles in the air. What I've learned, Dave, is if people spend $100, $200, even $300, it's a waste of money. It's not really reducing your exposure to the ultrafine particles that are lung damaging and cell damaging. So our Winix 900 is our least expensive unit. It's just over $400. And even right on the Winix website, they've got a similar model to the one we sell, same airflow, but it's $150 less, right on the manufacturer's website. So what does that tell you? And now I've got this, so I can test it. People don't have one of these. The fact that it's $150 less, and our testing showed the filter was nowhere near as good as the one in the unit we offer. For $150 less, they had to reduce the cost in making the unit. The filtration will suffer. It's thinner, it's not sealed. And we were getting over 20% of particles not even getting captured, which is not a good rate. So the Winix that we offer tests really well. We always get minimum 99% capture. Oftentimes it'll go down to 0, and it also has plasma, which is why we started with them about 18 years ago. So again, we don't offer 5 million brands. We've got 2 brands, and we get really good results because their efficiency is legit, their airflow is wonderful, and we know how to size it. And it's not just the size of the area we're trying to do, Dave. It's how about the people living in the home? If somebody has cancer or is immune compromised or respiratory challenged, we have to get more air filtrations per hour than somebody else who's super healthy. So that's all.
Yeah, I like the fact that you test them, that you see the before and after, and they actually work. You're not just going to a big box store and not armed with really much information. You're literally buying what you're reading off the box and turning it on at home and thinking you're doing yourself good, when in fact you probably likely just wasted your money and you just bought an expensive fan, right? So if someone wanted to purchase these products, I guess there's a couple of ways to do it. If they're in and around the St. Catharines area, they can visit your store. And where are you located exactly?
Yeah, thank you. We're in St. Catharines. We're right off of the highway, so it's real easy to get to. People are traveling from Toronto. Before they hit the Garden City Skyway, we're right off of Lake Street. Everything is on display in our showroom. We're open 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. We also have a website, Dave, where people can watch short 4-minute videos. There's probably at least 20 or 30 4-minute videos on frequently asked questions about air quality. And I apologize, I'm in all of them, unfortunately, but people can watch them. Questions do get answered.
So to shop online, it's purahone.com. And yeah, you have a lot of fantastic products. And I like the fact that you test them. I like the fact that you did a test today, before and after. And like I said at the outset, you're already in a pretty healthy environment given all of your great products. And the test still was able to reduce the particles in the air just from our conversation today. Very impressive.
You know what's really cool, Dave? When I used to teach years ago, you go home and you're nodding at the steering wheel because I was in such a bad environment. I was exposed to mercury, like hydrochloric acid, a lot of particles, headaches weekly, literally, sore throats. You lose your voice at least once a semester. That fatigue, and I feel so lucky here. Our staff, we go home energized. The clean air, we're grounded at our desks. The drinking water, it's a blessing. I really just want to share with people, like, whether they buy from us or not, it doesn't matter. The world has changed, and not for the better. It is nice to have a really good looking countertop in our home that costs thousands of dollars, but in the end, it means nothing. 90% of disease, and I see that number repeatedly from different doctors and environmental toxicologists, is environmental. And it's about inflammation. We need to reduce inflammation in our bodies, which means we have to reduce our exposure to environmental toxins. It's that simple for our kids to have a chance moving forward.
I think that's a perfect place to end it. Thank you so much, Mario. It's very informative and really nice to chat with you, and look forward to our next conversation, which is going to be on water.
I look forward to it, and thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Thanks, David.